Hello, guys. Oh, man. David Vose here. It was a cold night last night. It got down below zero. It was supposed to be 8 below, and then they said, no, it's probably only going to be 5 below. But I think it ended up only about 1 or 2 degrees below zero. But it was crispy outside. We got a little fire going in here, and we were all warm and toasty, and me and the dogs. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful evening. Let me start off by explaining the true calendar and science behind numbers and what the Ark of Noah was, and the Ark of the Covenant of David, and the rainbow ark that was his covenant that he gave us after the flood. Look at this. Look at this chart. This is a Wikipedia yuga cycle. Very, very few people know what a yuga cycle is. If anyone had paid any attention, we could have known all of these things. I'm sure that I'm not blaming humans, because humans probably would have come up with this stuff. But we've been misdirected in these colleges, which only teach vocations that are made up, stuff that's not even natural, and we're dissecting and naming things inside the human body we can't even see. So we've been in a dark, dark place for a long time. But ancient knowledge knew much more. So when today people who think they're smart and wise say, "Oh, the yuga, it's a Kali Yugi, it's 432,000 years. Wow, that's an age. 430. No, it's not. A yuga is an age. Yuga is 360. And they count them in 12s. And so a Kali Yuga, 12 ages, a Kali Yuga, which is you times the 360 times 12. So let me show you. Here is a chart, the duration and the structure of yugas. Now you notice that there's a yuga sandhya, which is 100, and that's 36,000 solar years. A yuga is 360,000 solar years, but it's only 1,000 years on Earth. So you see, the 1,000-year reign of Christ is actually 360,000 solar years. This is the numbering of the Bible. It's written in code. And the Bible gives you the code, and I'm going to share that with you here in a minute. The Bible will tell you this same code. A day for a year I have given thee. There are 12 hours in a day, and a year has 360 days in a year. Now, I know there's 365, but in the scheme of things, the circumference of a sphere is 360 degrees. Now, if you make the circle bigger, then each of the houses become longer around the peripheral. Because if you've got 12 spokes going out from a hub, well, the further you go out, the larger the circumference of the wheel becomes. And it increases by a certain ratio. This is so deep. This is math that mankind today does not understand. Everything is based on this math. Creation is based on this math. The ratio of pi, which is something that the ancients knew before we ever discovered it. Pythagoras didn't discover any of this geometry. He got it from the Egyptian priesthood and the ancient truths. But this is the original numbering and mathematics it's the reality. So if you notice, we talk about, we go by a decimal system today, right? That's 10. Well, then if you'll read in your encyclopedias and dictionaries, they'll say, well, it looks like in ancient times, some people like the Sumerians used some other kind of system that had something to do with sixes as well. You've heard of sexagesimal. Six, same word. It has to do with sixes. Sexagesimal, or 60. So they went by 10s and 60s. Not only a decimal, but a sexagesimal. Well, how could you have a numbering system based on two different numbers? You see, this is not going to be one-dimensional like we have today. What we're dealing with today is one-dimensional, and it's true. Newton was brilliant, but wait till we get to the sexagesimal back into the equation, which now we have two dimensions. we're now in a three-dimensional world, basically, the reality. I mean, it goes beyond, but this is as far as we're going to get in this particular cosmos. But the next dimension in our thought is to understand the magic of numbers, because the magic of numbers is the divine being, because it is by virtue of itself. It is the law. It is the reality that we must understand. Now, we don't have to. We can be unconscious. But humans want to be conscious and fully understand their world, because it is the orgasm. It is the duality of the universe, of being. Well, it's not the only part of being, but the being that is the thinker and the being observing, enjoying. It's the flesh and the spirit inseparably joined, which is the eternal joy. And so we've got math, an entire science, then, that is based on not a decimal system, but it's based on 60s. Like, what is that? It's a sphere. There's 60 seconds, 60 minutes, right? And everything can be broke down into sixes. Everything, every number, actually. You know, there's nines in it, there's sevens. We talked about 52 weeks in a year. 5 and 2 is 7. So 7 would be the length of a week. We call it a week. And 12 is the length of a day. It's also the length of the year. Why? Because each of the 12 then expand towards the circumference. As you expand out, it grows, and now it's 360, no longer 12. So you see that 12 and 360 are the same value, but at a higher ratio. So we start off with 100 divine years, but that's 36,000 solar years. A yuga, an age, or a millennium, we call it, 1,000 years is really 360,000 years. This is why you find Enoch walked with deity, and all the years of Enoch's life was 365 years, because he represents the reign of a deity, and the deities are the governing astrological powers and influences. You see, Jesus was much more than Enoch, because Jesus was the incarnation of Enoch in his supreme power, because in his body dwelt all the pleroma, not only one of the divine deities, but they all dwelt in Christ, including his mother Zoe and his father Vose. So a Kali Yuga is 432,000 years. But look at what a Yuga is, 360,000 years. See, this goes all the way up to 4,320,000 years, which is 12,000 divine years. I hope this makes sense to you. But if you take the 900 years that the patriarchs lived, they all lived a little different, time spans, like Adam or something. Adam lived 930 years. Well, that's interesting, because King David lived 70. So if in the day in which you eat of it you will die is 1,000 years, then Adam died at 930, lacking 170-year generation. So this is an indication in the code the Bible uses that David was a fulfillment of Adam. So the incarnation of David was the final conclusion, or his life, or who he represents in his final conclusion will be king. So the 1,000 years that Adam lived was not 1,000 years. Let me show you. Here's a calculator. 1,000 years, and if you times it by 360, the answer is 360,000 years. That is a yuga. Adam lived an entire yuga of 360,000 years. Does that mean then that King David lived, let's see, 70 times 3, 6, 2,520 years? No. But David's lifespan represents that 2,520 years. You've probably heard Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and other people talk about a day for a year. A day for a year is what I have given thee. This is what the Bible says that the divine being gave Ezekiel to lie on his side for 40 days, and it meant 40 years. Well, that's what they determined it meant. Sounds like it, but they didn't understand the numbers in the Bible. The Adventists, they were off, and they made errors. But in actuality, they weren't really that far off, because what you're doing is you're taking a day, which has 12 hours, and you're making it into a year, which has 360. And so that is the correct principle. Absolutely. But they just didn't understand that what the Lord was giving Ezekiel was the code, or a calendar, or a clock, you might say, that is based on the literal days and years on earth, but is a grander scale. It's the solar year, not the earthly year. And therefore, we can extend this principle all the way. We wouldn't know how to do this. We wouldn't know we could do this, except that it's already in the ancient esoteric wisdom. It's in the ancient texts. It's been there all along. A yuga is 360,000 years, but that's 1,000 divine years. So Jesus and the saints will rule for 1,000 divine years, meaning we will rule for 360,000 years. And Adam didn't live 1,000 years. He lived, well, not completely 1,000 years anyway. He lived 930, right? But 1,000 years is 360,000 years. So Adam is mankind, and we live for 360,000 years. That's the night, 12. There's 12 hours in the day as well. So we're going to have now the light, the top side of the wheel, for 360,000 years, which is 720,000 years altogether, which is one of the yugas. If you notice there, under Dwapara Yuga, you see yuga, which is 2,000 divine years, but is actually on earth 720,000 years. So again, David was a certain person who lived in the past, who represented a certain group of people who will live out that principle as an extension of Adam, the final glory to become king. Adam himself then was represented by Adam, and David and Adam really have the same name in this code. Ada, because the im is plural, it's just Ada. He came from Adamah, which is the Mother Earth. But Ada is the same as Dada or Papa. In some languages, it's a P. Papa, Dada. We also have Mama and Anna. But Dada is also David with a V in the middle. Why a V in the middle between Dad? Because there's really isn't any D. You look in the Athenian Attic Greek and you see Theos and Athena. It has the front part of the ate, but the original word is Ada, and as it came down in other languages, because Hebrew was from left to right, and other languages from right to left, it ends up with a D on both sides. Dad, Ada, Dad, and that is diat, diat. Theater comes from it. Theat. I think this is where some people are getting this word thetan. They become a thetan, which is a theos, a daddy, a full-grown parent. Divine is also, well, David as the V in the middle, divine as the V in the middle, and yet divine is related to deity. There's no V. Why? Well, the V is silent in many languages. So it's just duat or dead. Zeus is deus, we actually have the word deus that means dual, and duat means the principle, the first principle of the duat. Now, in Egyptian, the word duat meant the bottom side of the wheel. So again, it's half of the wheel. The duat is the beneath. The dual, in our language, dual, can mean two people dueling, battling, opposed. So duat then is the opposite side. So the opposite side of something else. When you sing or do other things, you can have a duet, right? Which is two people singing together. Or a duo, right? The brothers get up on stage together. They're a duo. They do it together. So the dual, the duat, is the same word. The opposite side of the earth, the double, we use the word double as well, which incorporates duo. But Adam is dual. There's two, there's both. It's the Ada and the Im, which makes it plural. Now, it doesn't mean it's many, but it is, because within the duat is the many. Or, as I said in many videos past, when the Bible uses the word many, it most times means all, right? As opposed to the nothing. So the dual is when you've taken the whole and you begin to have variables. It starts off with the original duat, or both sides of the opposite ends. But remember, Orion, the hunter, comes up on the horizon coming out of the duat, which we've always said is the beneath. And yet the day is on the top and the night is at the bottom. Notice that night, the T is silent. We today pronounce the T, but it's the neath, as a neath. Well, neath is the supreme deity. She is a woman, and that is nu in the Greek. Anna, the mother of Mary. You see, even our divine mother has a mother. And the ultimate cause is the whole, the Barbella. She is the eternal virgin. That when she gave birth to the universe, she really just split in two and became the Adim. So Ada and Ima, or Mama, and that is the Ada, and that is the Dada. The other side of that principle is the feminine, and that's the Mama. So remember, Adim was made from Adimah in the Hebrew, and that is a plural word. So both the male and the female, Adim, Ada, and Mama, came from the Adamah, which is entirely feminine and yet still has a masculine particle, Adamah. So everything, no matter what it is a whole by itself and in and of itself, and everything has male and female. Even the original Virgin Mother who gave birth to herself is both male and female. And this is the symbolisms you see on the Bahamut and many of the ancient paintings. A lot of that stuff that you see, they're scaring you. You know, it's not about evil at all. You know, you see the skull and bones. You say, well, it must be that they worship evil. No, the skull and bones represents the head of John the Baptist. They revered John, and the early Christians as well did. Now, back to what we were saying is that why is the duat at the bottom in the darkness, and yet the da is at the top? Well, the duat is just a word in Egyptian that came from the original word dual, which had both up and down. And so they were using it in the sense it's the opposite, which had come to mean the down. The deity, even though it's from the same root as dual and duat and ada and David, with the silent V in the middle, Daud, it is still the opposite side. So the word David in the Bible doesn't necessarily mean my beloved. David is just from the word divine or deity or Ada in its original, or Daddy. And so Daddy was given a covenant that in him and through his seed, the world would be ruled over. His seed would be the king. His seed was Solomon, who had 1,000 wives. This is the family. And it all goes back to the Dada, and the sun, which is the soul, the sun, Amun, the moon, is always dual. And it is a great science, a calendar, numbers, math, all knowledge, history. It tells all things because it has not only numbers, but it has letters. It is language. It was written in the stars. It is the Ark of Noah, which is an ark which bends. And it was not a rectangle ark. If you look at the dimensions, was 300 cubits by 50 cubits. In other words, 1:6 proportion. That is not talking about cubits. We don't know what these words are that they're translating. They are translating it from an more ancient language, like even more ancient than Sumerian. They translated it, everybody translated it from the hieroglyphs, which is what Thoth wrote it down with on the Great Pyramid walls. It is written in the stars, and the arc is the arc of the wheel, the circumference. So in math, you have a thing called pi. It is a interesting little number, 3.1542 or whatever it is. It's an infinite number, right? It's got all these fractions. And so the ancient priests had understood and had figured out how to measure a sphere, the circumference and the volume of a sphere through geometry by using pi and a couple of other different numbers like this that they use to measure and quantify and understand 3D, or the reality of the volume of the universe, not only in the sense of size, but in mass. One must understand numbers to calculate such things. And so they use the word 3 a lot of the times in the Old Testament to represent this pi. Well, the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its radius is 6:1. And so therefore, when the Lord said to Noah, I want you to build an ark, which is some kind of a sphere, an ark. We still use the word arc when an arrow goes into the air and arcs, when the rainbow arcs. And who reign over the ark? The archons. They each rule over one of the houses. And what are in the houses? Animals. And who made this world with animals in the boat or in the ark? It was Noah. Now, as we've said, that's Anu. But ark is something that has to do with a sphere, and to understand the ratio of growth of that sphere, to get the volume, to understand the variety, to know the fullness of the equation, we must times the diameter of a circle by pi to get the circumference. Now, that means that what Noah built was a sphere, and some think he built a disc-shaped UFO and put all the animals in it. But friends, that's not what he made. He made the Ark of the Heavens, which is like it shows there that Yahweh made in Genesis 2, a garden, and he put a hedge about it. And in the garden, he made the animals. And the animals Adam named. And Adam was the crowning of the creation. And it was the icon or the image of the divine being. And the divine being incarnated into the world and graduated through the arcs and was ruled over by each of the animals or the natures in a transmigratory fashion, moving all the way up to the crowning of his creation, which is man, which will be 360,000 years times 2, or the great Dwapara Yuga. Now, there's certainly ages beyond that. But what are we saying then? If Noah made the ark, which is all the stars and the astrological wheel, the whole universe, or should we say the solar system? Then what about Adam? Genesis chapter 2, Yahweh makes a garden, puts a hedge about it, and makes all the animals. Well, you see, these stories are not talking about something literally that happened where Noah goes out and builds a big boat and puts all the animals on it. It's not saying that some god came down out of the sky like a Michelin tire man and chiseled out the world in 6 days and made this garden with animals. That's a parable. So what happened with Adam was the creation or the manifestation of the world, or an age. It was one age. And what happened with Noah, another one of the deities, in a different age, he made another classroom or another age or another creation. And this is what we're talking about here. We're about to go into another one now, a new age. The point here is the measurements that Noah made the ark, 6:1, has nothing to do with a rectangle, a long, skinny rectangle. It has to do with the ratio of pi to the radius of a circle, which is 6:1. And that means that what he was making is the astrological world, the universe, the entire dome of the starry sky that revolves around us, and the ark and the powers that be, the archons that reign over the world in each of the houses. And so Anu, or Noah, brought the flood, which is Capricorn, and Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces leads up to Aries, which is the coming of Christ, or the beginning of the spring equinox when the sun rises on the horizon. So those 3 houses are water. And it was January, or John, that did the baptizing. That's the Aquarian man. And that man baptized all of the animals under the sea. We became fish, we became birds, then mammals, then men. We transmigrated up to where we are now through those stages. But these are much, much longer and ancient stages, or greater ratios in the ages or yugas beyond the Kali Yuga, into vast cycles that are even greater. This has to do with the evolution and the progression of this particular grand classroom, which basically science has taught us is a solar system. And then you have galaxies, which are greater ages. But remember, there's no time and space. We're talking about concepts. So that galaxy is not in another place. You're seeing it with your eyes, a representation. But that is so far away. It's not even in this time zone. It's another age. And we're living there simultaneously, but in our consciousness, we're not there because it's a different time. But everything exists simultaneously. The universe, you can see it all existing simultaneous, but we're not conscious of any of it. We only see a flicker of its reality in the distance. But we are a part of its evolution. And so the book of Genesis is not only scientifically accurate, it is far more accurate than mankind will ever be able to understand for another thousands, I should say hundreds of thousands of years. I don't know, but it might be an infinitely deep book, and we may be studying it in 1,000,000 years from now. And at that time, we will understand deeper truths than what we can even conceive. The eye hath not seen, and the ear hath not heard, and has never come up or been dreamed of in the heart of man, what he has prepared for us. But, friends, what I'm trying to tell you is that no, Adam wasn't made voila in 6 days or something, and this giant Michelin tire man didn't come down out of the sky and get a chisel and some hammers and carve out the earth. But what we have in the Bible is a history of the entire civilization geologically, and in every way possible that you could even imagine at this time. It is a history of our earth for millions of years and gives us the basis or the pattern for deeper truths about greater ages and times and worlds that we can't yet comprehend, that we have already been a part of. So Noah did not build a boat and put all the animals in a boat and then the earth was flooded. No, the boat is the physical world that the soul dwells in. And inside the boat are all kinds of animal natures. And we're all inside this material universe, being baptized by Father Anu, who brought us into existence and went down and was swallowed up by the whale, by the fish, by the seed. The fish represents the seed, and the serpent represents the nature, the lowest physical nature that was imbued by the divine creator with the wisdom to progress and go down to the bottom of the sea and came back up and on the horizon rise. And when we rise on the horizon, we're going to go further. We're going to go to the Lord's kingdom, which is in the air, which is at the summer solstice. And there we're going to see our Divine Mother and her great organization, the Beehive, and all of the angels and beings that are sent from her down in through the crown chakra into the universe's crown chakra. And we incarnate and inhabit bodies and experience the transmigration around the wheel. The wheel is the ark that Noah built. It is the physical universe and the laws thereof. And it is based on the principle of pi, or the ratio of the fish that Pythagoras talked about. And it is 6-1, not a triangle, but a sphere. The universe is a giant sphere. Yeah. So David, or Daddy, to whom the promise is that he will reign over the world, and one from his seed shall always reign. So David handed over the kingdom to Solomon. Elijah gave the kingdom to Elisha, Elisa. And Elisa went to the wedding feast at Cana, because this is all about the great wedding that we do during the day, or when you're talking about summer. You have spring weddings, you have summer weddings, but you don't have weddings in the middle of winter, out in the snow. Usually you want to bring flowers and you want to have a beautiful white dress, and you're going to go and wait till your bridegroom comes and he's going to lift the veil, and it's going to be a glorious thing. Well, the wedding is coming, and it is the wedding of our duality into a unity. It is the male and the female who will come together, and the family will be one and will love one another. Friends, this information will be studied for 1,000 years hence. They'll be reviewing the very things that we have disclosed. These things that we speak of are the truth. So King David, Dada, had a son, Sol Amun, the sun and the moon. And through Solomon and this 1,000 wives, which is all 10 times 10 times 10, all the virgins gave birth, and the entire world was in harmonious unity because David brought the ark of his covenant, which is the 6-1 ratio of the ratio of the fish, which is creation, which is the nature of these numbers, and the Father and the Son and the Divine Mother. And so David had a son named Solomon, and David's son who will reign represents Christ, just as Elijah represented John the Baptist. He was Elijah. But Elisha, El Isa, or the deity Isa, Dionysia, this was the one who got 2 parts, a double portion of Elijah's power because he saw him go and got his mantle. That was Jesus, who saw John the Baptist beheaded and he will go on increasing and John the Baptist will go on decreasing. And so Jesus then did greater works than Elijah, but there's none born of woman greater than John. And this is the same code throughout the entire Bible. Genesis, before the flood, was millions of years, millions and millions and millions. The creation story is a long period of time. It's not 6 days, but there are 6 ages. And we'll go into that some other time. A lot of this has been so far scuttled that it's almost difficult to even come up with all the answers in a few minutes by yourself. You get the point, though, already, that we're talking about a grand scale of divine solar years, of divine years, rather than just solar years. Anyway, we're getting close to an hour now. I'm going to go ahead and just end it here. We'll get back to you guys probably tomorrow. We're going to do this series. There's probably going to be several videos because we've got a lot of information to cover. We're going to reveal a lot of answers. For those of you who are paying attention, this is good stuff. For those who can hear this and put it to use, we are going to be transformed. I'm going to leave it here. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening. May the Lord bless you all. According to your faith, may it be. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.